Hey YouTube, back with my second one-on-one, this time with the one and only. He is funnier than me, he is a better battler than me, he is a better content creator than me, and he is one of the few people who I think is actually taller than me. HomeSliceHenry, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm not quite sure about the height thing. I get a little lost in the meters to feet conversion, but I will have to take your word for
You are
it.
because when we met at New York, I think you had an inch on me. You're what? I'm
Okay.
like 6'2", 6'3". I think you're like 6'4".
Nah, I'm like around that same
Yeah,
range.
okay. Maybe I shrunk.
Maybe after a long day, you were just slouching a little
Yeah.
bit and I was standing tall.
That's my age showing through. How old are you actually? I don't even know.
I'm 28.
Okay, so yeah, I'm 37, so my age is starting to creak over. Okay, first, thanks for coming. One thing that I know I have to ask, and I know everyone else wants to ask, Home Slice Henry. Great, very catchy name. Beats Dan Ottawa for sure. Where the hell does Home Slice Henry come from? Because last time I checked, that wasn't even your name.
The worst part is this is the worst story ever. So, flashback to the summer of 2016. I am at the Summerfest Music Festival in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with my college friend group and my then college roommate who ended up being the best man at my wedding. And Pokemon Go dropped. I had never played a main series game. Like growing up, my parents were always like, go outside. I never had a DS. I had never interacted with Pokemon media in any way. And he was like, yo, this game's hot. Download this game. And I downloaded it. And then I have like a standard username that I use for other things. And Go was so big already, even on day two, that that username was taken. And I was sitting, like standing here, and they were like walking away at this big music festival. And I was like, oh, dude, I am going to get left behind. So I just picked a random, like, alliteration. Two meaningless words that just home slice Henry. It just rolled. I was like, they're both H's. Thinking I'm going to play this game for a week and then never play it again, as I do with many games on my phone. And now I'm called Henry. So.
That's a very random story. Also hilarious. I feel like most of the people, again, I'm Dan Ottawa, truly because same thing. A buddy at work was like, "You gotta download this game." I'm like, "Okay, I'll download it." I only played Pokemon Red and Gold when I grew up, and so I was like, "Okay, I'll download it. I probably won't play it for long term." And then here we are, 2025, still going through it. So yeah, I was kind of. We'll talk about Pokemon Go later. I want to just start with content creation because when I started, my
Okay.
content creation started in season 7, and I distinctly remember the GBL scene because it was Zyanic was over 100,000, and then we had King at like 60-ish thousand, and then FP Sticks was at like 40-ish thousand, and then there was like a cluster of you guys. There was like you and Tho and Rise and Yonkus and Purple Kyogre and Shrady, who are all in like that
Yeah.
15 to 20,000
Yep.
range. And then over time, as we've seen, a lot of people just left the game. Like a lot of those creators do not create anymore. But you keeping going strong. One of the top GBL creators in the world right now. So why did you start your channel? How did you start it? Just a little backstory there.
Yeah. So I would say that I've always had, like, I have always been a yapper from a very young age. I have always had the gift of the gab. One of my first jobs out of college was like inbound insurance sales, where people call and you obviously interact with them, and throughout the course of it you are trying to convince them to buy something. And that was something that I could just I've always just kind of had an ability to like talk to people. And that led me to do in high school and college. I ended up doing a lot of performing, whether it was like in musicals or different stuff like that. And post graduating, I didn't really have that. And like obviously around 2020 is when the Go Battle League really started getting going and everything was kind of shut down. I was working from home. I was living with my then girlfriend, now wife, and a friend of ours. So we were just sitting in our apartment bored out of our mind, and we couldn't really play the main game because you had to walk to do that, and we were stuck inside. So I ended up doing the battling portion of it. And kind of just out of a desire of I was really bad at the battling part of it, but I was having fun. I was like, hey, maybe this could be something in the interim because obviously I can't do any performing arts things when the whole world is shut down. This could be something where I could stream. And I will say that because my first ever piece of content that I put out was a live stream, and I got very lucky that it was the start of one of the earliest seasons. And you're gonna be shocked to hear this. There were game errors occurring on that day where you tried to queue into the Go Battle League and it was just nonstop game error, game error. No one could battle. So I went live to play the start of the new season. It was like season 1 or season 2 or something, and I couldn't. So I was just doing viewer battles, and that's how the first few people found my channel. Was they were on YouTube searching like, why can't I battle right now? And they came across the stream and they saw me battling and they're like, how are you battling? And I'm like, I'm battling viewers. You want to battle? And that's so I got very lucky. But genuinely, at the same time, I didn't start my channel for like 4 months from when I wanted to start it until I actually started it, out of just this, honestly, a lot of insecurity on my part. Fear of like, what if I start this and no one cares, no one watches, like, and I'm very lucky that my now wife kind of was able to provide the encouragement of like, if no one watches it, you're in the same spot you're in now. So you may as well just do it. And if it ends up flaming out, it'll be one of 15 other hobbies that people tried and gave up on during the pandemic. Like, I know some people got really into like homemade bread making. People got really into crocheting and stuff like that. Like we were just doing shit. So it started off, and I've been very lucky to get where I am.
Yeah. I mean, does it surprise me that you did shows and stuff? Maybe a little. Does it surprise me that you have the gift of the gab and are good with talking to people? Absolutely not. That definitely comes across in your videos for sure. When it comes to your sort of videos, you're a very interesting one because, you know, we got some people who are just like just always try hard team shoutcasters. There's some people like my channel tries to like help people learn. There's like Callum, who's just straight spice. You seem to have like a variety where you definitely showcase some spicy stuff, while at the same time being one of the like best battlers in the world. And it's actually very interesting to hear you say that at the beginning when you started, you were bad at battling, because you are now, like, I don't know if you consider yourself one of the best battlers in the world, but I mean, first YouTuber to hit legend this season. You are constantly top of the leaderboard. You now, like, one, how did you develop that skill in battling, for starters? And two, like, when you make a video, like, how did you define your niche? Like, how did you decide that you want to do, like, I'm going to be a great battler, but I also want to showcase some spice and some this? Like, how did you decide to, like, hone in on that?
When I initially started, and this a bit connects back to what you said, that in the scene there were some very well established names. Like King was kind of the god battler at the time of, like, when you thought about the best battlers, that was King. There was also like Wallower, who was a lot like smaller of a channel, but still very well known in terms of his teams and his influence and his like mechanics and whatnot. And there were people like FP Sticks as well. So it really felt like among the good battlers, there were a lot of really well-established people. There was Tho as well. And there was a lot of people who were really well-established in terms of being really good battlers. And I was not a very good battler. I was a very bad battler. Like, I liked the math aspects of it, but I didn't like, and granted, very few people in early days had like a good grasp of the game and the understanding of it, because it's always an evolving process. As a game becomes more understood, then you can start getting a better grasp on it. So I really liked just running fun stuff, because my first interactions with the battle mechanic were doing auto-rect battles with my now wife, and just running the 3 mons that were fun and trying to problem solve and figure out a way to do it. And so I kind of started, like, the first big like break that I really had on the channel was the Greninja video, where Greninja released, and I was still working from home at that time, and I was just out for lunch, and I saw a little Froakie silhouette, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna get a Froakie. And I caught it, and I saw the IVs, and I panicked. I still have the Greninja. It ended up being a really ugly combat power, 1480, but the first Froakie that I ever caught on the day it released was 01413. And then I ended up posting that video just because I was like, I have a Greninja because I had the rare candy. And that a little bit started the whole arms race of everyone trying to be the first one to get that out, because that took my channel from, I had been working for like 8 months and I had like 300 subscribers. In 3 days, I had passed 1,000. Like I had tripled it off of just one video. And that was kind of a key, like clued in a lot of people to like oh, this is something that a lot of people are searching on YouTube for when something drops. But oh, here I go yapping again. I've lost my initial train of thought.
That's all right. Well, it's interesting that you acknowledge the arms race, because I have there's a couple things that like make content creators like go like get big, I think. And I think one of them is you can have like a Battle Bill moment where you just have like a hilarious game issue and you go wild and it's just like a viral clip. And two, you really provide like a killer team. Like there's a team that goes wild and people are just flying this legend team and it's the best sort of thing. But the third, I think, is the first to showcase something. And it seems like you and Yonkis are in this. You guys must have New Zealand buddies or Australian buddies to hit you up, because these things are not released for like an hour before both of you are just spamming those videos out.
I owe the GOAT Smudgy B so much gratitude, because every calm day, with the exception of like Palmot was so bad that we didn't bother, like Wild Charge Blissey, he will play the calm day in New Zealand, and then he will test it out and send over the footage. And he's been so invaluable in that regard. And yeah, absolutely wonderful guy. Being able to have. And granted, I end up staying up. Like those videos normally go live at like 3 a.m. my time, so it's a really late night for me. But being able to have like Europe and North America wake up to a video, seeing them on, seeing if it's like something they should really play the day for or just kind of play more casually, I think is very helpful.
Yeah,
I remembered the initial question that you had asked one question before I got sidetracked by yapping. But yeah, so I started off running Spice because that was kind of the way to differentiate yourself, because everyone was running really good teams. And then I was losing a lot with Spice, like in the early days. And I was like, dang, I really like winning with interesting things, but I'm going to have to get better to do it. And that was kind of the drive of, if I can get better, and it's been a multi-year process as the game is more and more understood, being able to understand, like add more to the arsenal. Like once fast move denial was fixed, being able to really iron out those specific counts. The 50-second switch timer was another really big skill gap added to the game, where being able to understand and manipulate that switch timer, understanding like the 4 charge moves burns the clock. If someone stays into throw, you now have an ability to punish that by desyncing the clocks and having the alignment you want for at least part of it, trying to catch out of it, desync clocks, and just continually to try and grow to that, all to the goal of, I want to be able to run the things that I want to run, but I also like winning. So I kind of want the best of both, and just working to get better kind of helped achieve that goal.
Yeah, well, you seem to have gotten that down. You said you were, I know when you talk about the Greninja, you said work. Are you a full-time content creator, or do you have like a real job that you'd go to? Not that content creation is not a real job, but like, do you have a...
Yeah. I am full-time now. I was for the vast majority of making videos. I was also working full-time, but my job ended up getting downsized, and I had a moment of, well, I could like, if there was ever a time to try doing it full time, it would be after you get downsized out of a company. So I kind of just went for it, and yeah, been going ever since.
Nice. Last thing we'll talk about content creation, and it kind of goes into the battling. Yeah, so like I said, you're now a top battler in the world, but you have now multiple times been a shoutcaster at these Play Pokemon Championships, and whenever these Play Pokemon Championships are on, your weekend videos are usually you live shoutcasting these. It seems like you're not the only one. Like Nighttime Clasher is the same thing, a very, very good battler, but actually wants to be more of a shoutcaster, play-by-player than a battler. Is that your, like, have you ever, what made you the decision to go become that sort of caster as opposed to trying your hand at like the battling in these things?
I guess part of it is for all the things that I've been able to do in terms of Go Battle League accolades and stuff like that, there's still people who are a lot better than me. And like there's always going to be levels to this stuff, and I feel like there's just some people, like if you think about the like SS Thorn, the out of pockets of the world, who they just have it, where they're just electrically good at it, and no matter how many hours you put in, they're probably just going to be better. But I feel like there is a real skill when it comes to shoutcasting of not only being able to add excitement to a moment, but also to be able to convey in an understandable way to an audience why what they saw is impressive. Like, if your average person who has maybe only played the battling feature to level up tunes into a stream and they see a CMP sack swap, which is one of the most difficult things to pull off. You're timing it perfectly to catch a move and win the CMP. Being able to convey that excitement and explain why what they did was so incredibly difficult, I think is something that is a skill that I can have, and I can really help elevate the gameplay of others. So that's kind of why I'm more drawn to that, because I think there are lots of very good battlers. And I think being someone who can understand the game at that level and then use it to enhance the plays they make and make it understandable, I think is valuable.
Well, you do obviously a fantastic job at that. So, yeah, because I know like Caleb seems to have like one of the permanent spots. How do they determine who showcasts these things? Because you seem to go up like every once in a while. Like it just seems like random for like the specific regionals.
Whenever they ask me to go, I say, yes, sir, Mr. Pokemon, and I am there. Genuinely, I don't have a great answer for that one, unfortunately. Whenever they ask me to be at a regional, I will be at that regional. Okay. Just because getting to interact with people, do lucky trades, and it's just unbelievable because I've gotten a chance to go to some of the Go Fest before, but obviously those are a bit more spread out in terms of it's not necessarily like all battlers, whereas at a regional, you'll end up meeting a lot of people whose content you've maybe consumed and has influenced you, or people who have consumed your content and they've been like influenced and grown as battlers from that. You can meet like your peers, do lucky trades. Like it's just, if you haven't gotten the chance to go to a regional, and I say this to the audience members because Dan has gone to regionals before, it is a really cool experience. Even if you just go as like a spectator, like it's just awesome.
Yeah, it is kind of like it's weird because like the community is so close to each other, but then you're seeing these people who you've watched for years. Like I remember seeing like Rise for the first time, like holy crap, that's Rise. Just like, but they're just like whatever.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the next hometown regional you go to, hit me up in DMs. We're gonna get in the lab and we're gonna have a day 2 Dan.
Yeah,
write this down. Write this down, viewers. Day 2 Dan. No. We will be getting in the lab.
I think we're gonna need a little more than a lab for that. Okay, let's talk GBL. And the first question I have is, why do we keep putting up with this crap? Like, it's been 20. You said at the beginning of this interview, season 1 is when a bug happened, and we're season 23 or whatever the hell season we're on now, and the bugs are still the same. The player base has shrunk from when season 1, probably like 90% of people tried it at least, to now you're lucky if you have 10% of the people playing. Why? I don't even know why answer. Maybe it's some content creation. Maybe I still like it at some times. What keeps you coming back to GBL despite all the issues?
I think because when it works, it is one of the most rewarding possible games that you can play in terms of the adrenaline rush of split-second decision-making. Like, your opponent, like, you are 4 off of a move. Your opponent has the move now. You have to predict in which of those 4 2-turn fast moves you're going to switch and catch, and being able to get that prediction right, like making split-second decisions, getting rewarded for it as well, and just the extreme level of like how skill can be rewarded, especially with the 50-second switch timer. I think that when the game works, it's one of the best games ever made, and when it doesn't work, it's so frustrating because we've seen moments of like when it works, it's fucking unbelievable. He might have to censor me for that, so I said it kind of quietly, but it's unbelievably good. And that's what makes when it doesn't work so frustrating, because you're like, man, you have an unbelievable gold mine of a game mode here. If you could fix just a few of these issues, it would just be unreal.
So speaking about the issues, what frustrates you the most? Is it a specific bug that frustrates you the most? Is it because like I've got multiple things. We'll talk about each one of them, but like the bugs bother me, the metas bother me, the leagues bother me. Like there's a lot of GBL that's bothering me right now. But what bothers you the most specifically?
Scopely, if you fix one turn bring in lag, I will go back to spending money on this game. If I bank a charge move to win the game and my move doesn't show up one more time, Scopely.
Yeah, that's that one right
That
now
one.
is frustrating.
That one.
It's
One thing that I was very happy they fixed, like I don't do you use an iPhone or an Android phone when you
Android.
battle? Okay. The one thing that I do want to give them credit on is if you remember back, I think it was like 6 months ago, with how atrocious those like entire game freezing frame drops were. The fact that they've done work to fix that, I'm happy about. So that gives me a little bit of hope that they can fix the one turn because oh man, like the one turn is just so devastating because like the banking of a move knowing you win charge stack priority is obviously a very skillful play, and to have that just not be a thing, like I had a game 2 days ago that I mean it'll very much be a tiniest violin moment, but it cost me 3,300s because my move didn't show up, and then I saw that guy who I lost to because my move didn't show up, and he was 4th in the world, and I was like, okay, all right, okay, that's so frustrating to just oh man, but I think that's genuinely, I feel like fixing that is like 95% of the issue that I have with the game right now. Is just one turn is really pervasive, and it also like it can affect us very badly, but it also disproportionately affects people who don't live in North America even worse than us. Like I've watched some like Australian battlers battle, and it's every bring in, and I'm like, how do you live like this? Are you okay? Like it reminds me a little bit about OG denial, where obviously it could be bad for the States, but it was like even worse for people who were abroad, which is really unfortunate.
But do you think that fixing the bugs is going to bring people back to this game? Or is this too far gone that people won't even give it a chance anymore?
I think especially fixing one turn could have a decent chance, because the interesting thing is for all the people who are leaving, and because people phase out of games, it happens, but there are quite a few people who are like newer to the game who are like still getting into it. So the premise of the game is still exciting enough to attract new people, but I think the big thing is basically just trying to stop the bleeding of people who have played for a while getting frustrated and being like my joking bit earlier of like, Scopely, if I lose one more game due to one turn bring it, I'm gonna crash out. But like, it's genuinely a very frustrating thing, especially if it's like a 3-2 and I level up to expert. Oh wait, just kidding, it's a 2-3 now, or the battle cannot be recovered, or one of those.
Yeah, because again, people who play GBLs know how important one game could actually mean in terms of your elo. Like going from like a 5-4, even a 5-4 to 4-1 is like 30 to 40 potential points there, and same thing, like
Yeah.
even going like a 3-2, going up like 10 points, 15 points, to losing, going 2-3 down, like that's a significant swing you need to make back over time, and that happens a lot during these battles.
Yeah.
So every season, again, so the bugs are obviously the biggest issue, 100%. I have problems on myself with the meta and the leagues, and I think the leagues, I think Niantic is just not putting in any effort. It's just the same leagues every single year over and over. Some of these leagues are good, like don't get me wrong, some of these leagues are good, but some of them are just like not thought out, like single or two typing, three typing metas. Another problem I have is the meta, and it's not something that even they could fix, because I know you played enough tournaments and I played enough tournaments with Gym Breakers and Frontier and all these other ones, where you have some people who create some unique leagues, like ban certain typings, ban certain Pokemon, but every single time the meta will shrink immediately, and so it shrinks to like 10 to 15 Pokemon no matter what league they try and do. And I find that one of the most frustrating. Like, do you get bored of metas very quickly like I do, or is that not an issue for you?
It can a bit depend on the particular meta. Like I know Scroll And granted, it has been like 2 months since Scroll, and it's tough to remember back to exactly what was played there because it was so early on. But that was like our first new meta in I don't know how many seasons, but a few. So I don't remember being an enormous fan of Scroll, but I like the fact that they were, trying to bring a new meta. Like some metas can genuinely feel completely different if they're gone for long enough. Like I will say this current Retro Cup, granted I don't know when this video is coming out, but it's when the Retro Cup's currently coming out. It feels different to any other iteration of a Retro Cup because now it's just the Furret Grumpig Cup. Whereas obviously in previous seasons, it was the Triple Confusion, Triple Dragon Cup, and now that's a lot less, like it is a lot more just about you kind of just run these two Pokemon and neutrally outplay people, which I think there's a bit of, I don't know if it's skill or luck when it comes to knowing when to bring, like if it's been long enough to bring back a meta to where it feels different, to where like I really haven't minded Retro just because it feels like a new meta because none of the stuff that was good last time is good anymore. So it can feel fresher. Whereas sometimes it's just like running back certain metas like the Flying Cup. If I never saw the Flying Cup again, Dan, it would be too soon. No more. I don't want it.
They got to get rid of the single typing cups, the Psychic Cup, the Electric Cup, the Flying Cup. Like one typing's too small. But like just to that point, like I understand your perspective of like you're right. The last time we had Retro Cup was that Double Confusion or Rangaroo, Giraffe Rig backline, or the Triple Dragons because Steel and Fairy are gone. It's just 100%. Yeah. The meta has changed, but the meta has changed to Jumpluff, Grumpig, Furret. And that gets boring when, like, I did a video, and in the first 4 battles, there were 4 Furrets and 3 Jumpluffs. Like, it does get boring from that perspective for me, and I think people are also being like, I'm done with this already. But I know, that's just kind of the game works, right?
One thing that I will say is, I imagine you probably have a different perspective on it, even to me, just with the work output that you have of, like, 2 videos per day, which, first of all, are you okay? Like, is your pulse, like, how are you getting this many videos? I don't understand. He has a full-time job. He has a wife and kids. Sir, do you sleep? Do we need to call a Canadian doctor? How?
You can call Canadian doctors for free here.
I can definitely imagine that doing double the amount of videos, it could probably feel a lot staler, a lot faster. Just because if you're like... If you get home from work and you're like, yo, I'm going to batch record 4 videos, and then it's like an hour straight of Furret Grumpig, you're like, please, anything but the pig, no more. So I can definitely get that. Like, I think there can be a fine line. Like in the first few days of the meta, it definitely felt like it was just, you kind of have to run those 2 and then just try and figure out the matchups and neutrally outplay. And it felt today there was more variety. Like there was a lot more Dragonite, Gator, Macargo. Like there was a bit more variety of people realizing other mons that can coexist in this Furret, Jumpluff, Grumpig environment. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how the metas can develop and change, because I don't even think that the people who make it can necessarily predict on how they will change. But I think a big thing as well is I try to avoid showcasing like really fast move pressure heavy teams, just because I know that sometimes if a video comes out that is like, yo, Basti Medivic is sick, like back in the day, then everyone's on Basti Medivic. And then everyone's like, wow, my sets were miserable. Like,
yeah, I always say there's 2 things that determine the meta, and it's PV Poke and content creators. Because you and Yonkis, whenever you guys put out a freaking video, I can see that team like 20 times in the next like 5 sets. So show 6 pick 3 being the go-to format in like the Play Pokemon Championships. Would you like to see some sort of like, do you like GBL the way it is, like this blind 3, or would you like to see a 6 and 3, or would you like to see like a mix, or like how would you like to see this going in the future here if you had the option?
What I think would go absolutely crazy, and I don't know if you've played like the Madden or FIFA franchises before, but they will have this thing called Weekend League, where they'll basically have like a Weekend League with show 6 would be incredible. Weekend League is basically over the course of a weekend from like Friday midday to like Sunday at midnight. You have like a certain amount of matches to do, and they could do so that way people have an ability to, like, if you're busy one day, you can do them another day. And then at the end, based on where you end up, there's like a bunch of rewards at the end. So something like that, where it's like you have 10 show 6 pick 3 style matches that you can do between Friday noon and the end of Sunday, like every weekend. And then if you end up doing well, there's like a bunch of rewards, like you get like Stardust, 50 charge TMs, something like that, to like teach people that, hey, show 6 pick 3 is a thing. Granted, this is a pipe dream. Like, I would love it if they did it, but I have no expectations of it. But something like that, where I think there's some value in blind threes, just in terms of it is an easier way to onboard newer players into a blind threes format, rather than, because blind threes is a great way to learn the mechanics. And then once you learn the mechanics, you kind of funnel them into show 6, because show 6 is, you're picking what 3 based on what 6 your opponent have, so it is a little less reliant on variance than just a true blind threes format. So I think something like that would be very cool, and I'd love to see that as kind of an addition to it. But I do think there is some value to blind threes, even though at times I know they can be frustrating.
I wish that the leaderboard people at the end of the season got some sort of reward. I wish there was like some reason to grind, because like you said, we were talking just before this video, that you're in like the 30, close to 3,300, and the queue times are like 5-10 minutes. And I remember, like, I think the highest I've ever got was like 18 or 22. And same thing, there's like 5 minutes between the battles, and you go 4-1 and you get like 12 points, and then you go 1-4 and you lose like 120. It's just like, it makes no sense up there. There's no reason to be up there. So I wish they like kind of fixed the system a bit, and like rewarded people for grinding that hard. And last thing we'll talk about this on GBL, you did mention, you started off as a not great battler, and you're a great battler now. I think over time, you just, like, again, you worked on it. I had Daxi on my first one, and I talked about how he went from like just not playing much to hitting legend when Panic coached him. There are still many subscribers on my channel who have been playing for 3, 5, 10 seasons that are still stuck in Ace, Veteran, at best. How would you, like, I've given my opinion on how to become a better battler, and here's like the first things you need to learn, and here's the next things you need to learn. What would if you had like a 5-step plan for people how to get better, how to really push from Ace to Legend, if that's their goal, like what sort of steps do you need to get there?
I think specifically from Ace, there's a few common mistakes that certain Ace players can make. And it's something that, shameless self-plug moment, over on my second channel, HomeSliceHenry, I did and this is why I feel like I actually can answer this question kind of decently, is I did someone sent in 2 sets of a battler who had never made it out of Ace, and I kind of looked through to figure out what common issues are they having. And I'd say the biggest thing is awareness of opponent's energy is probably the number one thing to me. Even more so, just awareness of opponent's energy and where they're at allows you to know how much you can overfarm, which is very valuable. And I would say that's probably the most important thing. I think charge tag timing is very important. Obviously, not giving your opponents free moves is very helpful. But I would say awareness of where the opponent's energy is at might even be a little bit more important than that. I think they're both very good. But honestly, what helped me was I just took one meta Pokemon at a time. Because if you're thinking about I have 100 Pokemon to memorize, that's terrifying. You're like, I can't do that. I'm just a guy. I don't have that dog in me. I'm not going to be able to do that. But if you kind of take it of just I have seen 8 Furret in one set. It's not mathematically possible, but I have. And then you can just go to the website that I often use is Pokemoves. Is very helpful, but you can just type in Furret and it'll say Sucker Punch. Okay, it's straight 5 to Swift, and then it's 7 for Trailblaze. And then in your battles, then you can kind of keep a mental tally of, okay, they're on 11. They threw a Trailblaze. -7 is 4, and then kind of count from there. But it can really open the door to your ability to overfarm. If I have a move that knocks out and they're not really threatening me, I can farm up until 1 before they get there. Or if I win the cap tie, I can cap tie them. It can allow you a lot more ability to utilize your energy better, because at the end of the day, PvP in Pokemon Go is a game of advantages. It's a game of obviously switch advantage, which is the big one. But if you ask a brand new player, it's I want my good Pokemon in its best matchup. But even if you don't have Switch, obviously like Shield, and the big thing for me is energy management, and specifically being able to know where your opponent's energy is at can help you manage energy so much better. And then the recent one that was kind of within the past year was being able to manage that 50-second switch timer. And that is, especially if you're running a more flexible style team, if you save switch out of a matchup and your opponent stays in to throw a move, or even you trade moves, like they throw a move, I throw a move, and then they switch, half your switch timer's gone. And being able to say, oh, I now have switch advantage for half of this game, and being able to take advantage of that, punish that. There was actually an incredibly good example of like switch timer manipulation it was the Milwaukee Losers Finals. It was game 5 between Nighttime Clasher and Out of Pocket. And Out of Pocket was hopelessly hard countered. But Nighttime, throughout the course of the game, made several errors that slowly desynced the timer more and more, and it ended up letting Pocket win the game despite being just in atrocious matchups the entire way. He had like no business ever winning the game, and he was able to fight back and win it by banking a bunch of energy and being able to escape out of a matchup because Nighttime's timer wasn't up, but his timer was up. So being able to understand and work around that switch timer and being able to punish your opponents when they make the misplay of desyncing a timer, I think is, once you have the energy management down, that's kind of the next step of where there's still some very good players who consistently make Legend who don't have a good understanding of that switch timer. And I think that's like the real next frontier, because for a while, post Fast Move Denial Fix, it was, if you learn charge move timing, it's basically a free Legend, because a ton of people didn't know it. I really feel like this is kind of the next frontier of like understanding how to effectively punish switch timer misplays by your opponent when you don't have switch. I think it's a very, very underrated, but it can win you many games.
Yeah. So there's two things that you said there that, one, perfect, because the same thing. I always say there's 3 things that win GBL: switch advantage, switch, energy, and shield. And in those 3 things, you again, if you lose one, you can look at the other 2 as potential win cons. And yeah, I am now showcasing like more subscriber battles on my channel, and the energy management is one that you see very, very differently between a legend and like a ace, or what, even like lower than expert, where like a legend like truly knows the counts and is farming up and timing those moves properly and are coming out with like 3 or 4 extra fast moves, whereas a sort of newer person would not have those fast moves. So yeah, I think that's all for the GBL aspect. That's 40 minutes here. We'll quickly round up in a couple other things. Just the larger Pokemon Go. I know you said you go to a couple Go Fest and stuff. What other parts of the game besides GBL do you like? You can say
At this
nothing.
point,
You can say nothing, because I
kind of like, yeah, I like my playing of this game is to acquire resources to battle with. So it's like, I will do raids if it's something I need for the Master League. If it's something I don't need for the Master League, I will not be there. I will play an event if it's like, they had like the Psychic Spectacular event back when, and I was able to get my Malamar XLs for XL Malamar. So I played the heck out of that event to get the Malamar XLs. And then the moment I had 296, I was out. I was back home. I was on my couch. I was no longer in the app. So it's a lot of like, if there's an event that matters from a PvP perspective, or from a dust perspective. So like the Fungus plus double dust spotlight hours, I will be there 100% of the time. But if it's like something that isn't boosted and it's like double candy on a Pikachu with a costume, I will not be opening my app. Like, it's a lot of the time it's just trying to, because it's a bit of a resource acquisition game of like, skill will always, like almost always win out, but to a certain level, having the stuff, even having a bad IV version of a Mon, as long as it's not an XL Mon, is still better than not having it at all. Like, when I managed to, and some people in chat might yell at me for TOS, but the past few seasons I've hit Legend on my wife's account just because she likes having the cute little Pikachu Libres, and it gives me something to do post Legend. So, but on that account, like, it was, I can't remember what cup it was, but I ended up, she didn't have the Mon, so I traded her 3 Mons, and they were all atrocious IVs, and then hit Legend on her account with those. And some people, when I mentioned that, were kind of flabbergasted. They were like, but the IVs are bad. And I was kind of like, yes, but I would say the big, like, if you have the option between a good IV and a bad IV Mon, build a good one, because obviously if you have that luxury. But if you're someone whose time is limited, like I know obviously someone like you, where you have a full-time job, you have a family, and there's going to be a lot of people watching who are in a similar situation where they don't have like 12 hours per day every event to go hunt the perfect rank 1 XXL flower crown exact perfect mon they have. But genuinely, my biggest advice is like, even a bad IV of a mon is going to, and learning the matchups of it is going to serve you better than just not building something as you hold out for a better IV. Because even like a 15-0-0 Shadow for Alligator at peak for Alligator was still just dominating. Like it was still just crushing. Even I would say right now, and granted this can obviously change, I would say the best mon is Malamar. Which is weird in a Tinkaton meta, but Malamar is just unholy good. Even an atrocious Malamar, and obviously if people can get the Shadow, it's a really good thing to have. But even a bad one is worth having, and just learning how to play it is so good. Because if you can figure out what matchups you can and can't live, having it is like 95% of the battle. And it always saddens me when I'll see people because I watch a lot of people's videos in the category, and there'll people be like, man, I wish I could use this. I only have a bad IV. And I just want to shake them and say, you can run it. I swear you can run it. It'll still probably work out pretty well for you. The only league I would say this doesn't apply to is like a master league, where you don't want to trade for like a 269 Dialga and 50 it. But like for the Ultra and Great League, if it's not an XLmon, just having one of it, as far as GBL purposes, will work out well.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that on my channel too. Of course, there's some match, like some very, very XL Pokemon versus just like the level 38 or 40 where like you pick up like 8 matchups. Like it does matter. But then like same thing, like I always looked at Swampert. It's like when Swampert was meta, like the best IV Swampert versus like a crap IV Swampert was like one matchup, if that. So like use the freaking Swampert when it was the main meta, right? So anyways, I think we're good. I don't know if there's anything else that I want to ask you. So thank you, HomeSlice, for coming on. Go check out his channel and his second channel as well. I know he has a Discord as well. Definitely, I think probably one of the more popular Pokemon Go Discords. It is definitely popping in that one. So you can go join that as well. That is it. Thank you for watching. See you guys in the next one.